Okay, this video is going to really explain how I overcame my trading mistakes and what rules I actually applied and built into the system that would address all these mistakes. I'd gotten to a part in my trading after, I'd say this was about 6 years into, maybe 7 years into the beginning of my trading. And after experimenting, trying a lot of strategies, and just putting in a lot of screen time, observing some very high probability patterns that repeated themselves over and over, I combined things that I had learned, experimented, tried, and I found, a handful of setups that really worked well, assuming that I used them in the market conditions where they were most likely to succeed. So all of that took quite a bit of time, but I had gotten to a point where I had some very good success on simulation, weeks and weeks, sometimes months of consistent profits, and then I'd go live, and then things would just fall apart. I'd go back to sim, like, what did I miss here? Do well again, go back live, blow out an account, have, terrible losing days, and just, basically couldn't get beyond that point. So here's the question I finally had to ask. If my trade system was valid, why did I keep failing? And you can see this pic here. It's kind of a joke. I tried to find the most unhinged looking picture of myself, but this is kind of like a personification of how I'd feel on some of those disastrous days. And here, after observing my behavior, after recording my trades, after reviewing my journals, here's some of the main reasons that I believe, especially when I'd go live, because during the simulation environment, a lot of these things didn't happen, but when I went live, here's some of the things that I believe resulted in my failure. One of them was lack of impulse control. And a lot of these things I didn't really understand about myself until I really got into live trading. Yes, maybe in grade school I got thrown out of class for being the clown, and maybe I had some examples of when I did that throughout my life, but it wasn't something I was overtly aware of. But lack of impulse control in trading is deadly. I mean, if you could see something and go, oh, look, here, my indicator's going off. Wow, this market's moving fast. This looks good. This looks good. Click. Oh, boom. Just like not really controlling your behavior. Like you're in a trade going long, and all of a sudden it loses and it starts rocketing down. You say, oh my God, I'm going to go short. It's obviously moving down short. Click. And just stupid, things. And I realized I was very susceptible to not controlling my impulses. Another thing was wandering attention. This is mostly on a slow day. Days when the market's not really doing a whole lot. I didn't see some of my setups really happening. Let me check my email. Let me go on Facebook. Let me text on Futures.io. Let me do something here. All of a sudden, boom, a move would happen. I'd miss it. A setup would occur, and I just wasn't really focused. I didn't see, and maybe that day my brain wasn't 100%. I mean, I wake up some days and I feel a little bit like I didn't quite wake up all that well. My brain is just not 100%. And then a real biggie for me was revenge trading. I'm sure a lot of people watching this know what I'm talking about, especially if they're live traders. Revenge trading usually happens after several losses in a row. You've lost money, you keep losing your trading, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling. Not only did you lose money, which always sucks, but there's this feeling, unless you've really been there, and I'm sure some people get this worse than others. I got it pretty bad. The revenge trading, I just would feel like extremely agitated, for lack of a better word, and it's probably things going on with your neurotransmitters, everything. But the bottom line is, more than anything in the world, you want to get rid of that feeling, and you want to get rid of it now. In other words, postponing your immediate gratification is not a priority at this point. You want to get rid of that feeling that you've just lost these trades, lost your money, and the only way to get rid of that feeling is what? Going back in, getting a few wins, and I've restored myself. I feel better. It's almost like a drug, boosting that dopamine up where you're feeling good, or it's a drug to get rid of that terrible feeling. And in some people, including myself, it can be almost uncontrollable, which brings me to really pretty much the same as the next point here: loss of emotional control. And I didn't realize, again, I had these issues until I was in that live trading environment, and it would happen, and I was just not prepared. I was not prepared of how I would behave psychologically. And these are things that people don't really pay a lot of attention to. They're looking for their magic indicator, their holy grail bar type. Should I use Unarenko? Should I use this? And they never really think about their behavior and why they succeed on simulation. If you're not succeeding on sim, well, you still got some work to do. If you're making it on sim, you have a workable system, but you keep failing live. These could be some of the reasons. Losing emotional control. What happens when you lose emotional control? You're not perceiving the market the way it really is. In other words, from an objective point of view. The best way to see the market is to be emotionally neutral and look for opportunities and say, hey, the market's doing this or that. But when you're out of control, you just want to jump in, and the slightest thing that looks like your system, or just starts moving in your direction, or if you're extremely afraid, you may be in a winning trade, you're taking 10 ticks of heat. Oh my God, I'm losing again. I can't handle this. I'm getting out. Click, and then it goes on to win, and you're like, and then you look like me in this picture. You're just totally going over the top. And then here's another one that killed me: unable to stop at a daily loss limit. Now, I would sort of have a pretty good idea. A lot of times it was like 20 ticks down, then maybe it should be 30. I even had a maximum, all right, $40 or $400 per contract max daily loss. That's as much as I wanted to lose. And then it would happen. I'm $400 down. It's like, okay, time to quit. And then it's like, I don't want to quit. Why should I? Why should I quit when I know how to do this, when there might be some better moves in a little bit and I can recoup my losses? What sense does it make to quit? I'm not going to quit. And I wouldn't. And sure enough, on a lot of these days, they would be the big disaster. And I remember my broker, Matt Z, once I called him up a few years ago and I said, you know what? After a really bad day, I said, I'm closing it up. Send me my money back. And he was really cool. He said, call me on the phone. And we spoke, and he said, that's fine. He goes, and maybe you should. He goes, but did you have a daily loss limit? You didn't stick to it, did you? And he talked to me. And I got to tell you, that conversation kind of, from Matt from Optimus really, he went above and beyond a broker. And he wasn't doing it to so I keep my account. I had a pretty small account anyways. And I think he just genuinely wanted to say, hey, you're not a bad trader, but you did not follow your daily loss limit. And he was right. And I didn't give up that day, but I came very close. And there were other days I almost quit too. I've probably almost quit many times in the last 4 or 5 years and just try to go out and get some other type of work. But I figured if I quit, I want to quit because my system sucks, because I've failed to have a good trading system. I didn't want to quit because I couldn't control myself. I didn't have the ability to discipline myself or follow rules. That's unacceptable to me. I'm a person that's pretty disciplined. I've gone in bodybuilding contests and gotten myself in fantastic shape. I have done all kinds of things, and I was in martial arts, things that require discipline. So if I'm going to fail at trading, it better be because I can't figure out what the heck I'm doing, not I can't control myself. That's unacceptable. I took entries that weren't valid setups. Why? Again, I'm seeing the bells and whistles, my tick strikes going off, things. I'm assuming there's a lot of momentum. But if I sat there and said, hey, is this a good setup? Is this one of my designated 3 or 4 setups that I've put names on? I actually have names of my setups. And a lot of people don't trade like that. They say, I'll just take a position. If it goes in my favor, I'm going to add more contracts on. And then I'm going to peel some off. And they don't really have a valid entry or that. And guess what? That's fine. I don't care what anyone does. There is no one way to do this. But I want to follow my system because that's the only way that I've ever proven it works is by doing, specific setups that work in specific conditions that I've seen by watching my screen hours and hours and hours a day for 10 years. My brain at least has the ability to spot patterns, pattern recognition. Might not be a genius, but I can figure that out. So I would take entries, just again, spontaneous, lack of impulse control. These are all kind of related. Trading in bad market conditions. Well, sometimes we don't know initially, but have you ever been in a trade and it loses and then you take another one and you just keep going and going? And if you just maybe just paused for a minute and said, hey, this is really chaotic. This is choppy. This is crappy. Why am I doing this? And that's another thing. People trading, and there's some conditions, unless you had maybe a gigantic stop loss, you're pretty much, and I don't do that, you're guaranteed to lose virtually every trade. And some of those happen in the first 10 minutes of the open when things are especially in NQ that just go bananas, or when there's just, you're in consolidation, you're in some mode. You have to be able to identify the mode that you're in. It's not like, oh, my indicator says this and my VWAP is this and that. It's like, dude, are you looking at the market conditions right now? Oh, no, I don't look at that. How would I know that? Is my, all this crap indicators. I can tell by looking at a chart for 2 minutes what kind of mode it's in. I don't need some lagging indicator to say that. And newbies get really caught up on, what's the bar type, what's this? And they'll scroll through months of charts not knowing that when it's really live and is when you're processing things. You've got to be able to process the market and identify the mode that it's in. Okay, this might sound a little funny. If you are not a robot, a cyborg, or a sentient artificial intelligence organism, you must evaluate. I say this here because if you're an automated trader, you have automated trading, or you happen to be a robot, don't laugh, they're probably building these to trade as we speak. A cyborg, which eventually may be a human being, and this wouldn't be so bad, a human being that's kind of plugged in. Maybe there's a jack in the back of your neck like in the Matrix, and you're hooked into some sort of computer, and you've got what I think the benefits of a human are. There's things that I do. I'm not sure there's machines out there that really do it. When I'm looking at those market conditions and processing that in a price action pattern and processing, the swings here and all that, maybe somebody could code what I do, but I doubt it. So here's the issue, though. If you're an automated trading program you've got, or you're a robot, or you're a cyborg, or you're some AI creation of some sort that can do all this stuff, you're a human being, okay? And you are subject to having certain problems, like your emotional state, your cognitive state, and of course the ability to process subtle changes immediately in market conditions and all these other things. But the first two, if you are not the robot, cyborg, or artificial intelligence organism, you absolutely need to be aware of your emotional state throughout your trading session and your cognitive state. Okay? These two, and then market conditions I'll talk about in a minute. So how are you able to evaluate yourself? Because again, if your cognitive state is off or your emotional state is off, this can cause a lot of problems, as we just talked about. Okay, I do something now generally every 10 to 15 minutes during my trading session. It's going to sound very bizarre. You may have already turned this video off because it was already too bizarre for you. I'm just saying what works for me, and maybe it might work for some other people. If not, well, that's not my issue, is it? But here we go. I do something I call the ECM inventory. ECM inventory, again, of course, is I am taking inventory or evaluating my emotional state, my cognitive state, my market conditions frequently throughout the session. So I'm like every 10 minutes I have a little piece of paper, and I do this pretty quickly. I just jot it down, and it'll say like 9:45, ECM, let's go, emotional state. And I'll write things like, I'm neutral, I feel pretty good, I'm calm. Or if I'm disturbed, I'm going to say, I'm kind of depressed today. I'm agitated, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm not happy. And believe it or not, those emotions can color the way you're perceiving the market. You've got a stock account somewhere else, and maybe besides your futures trading, and the market's crashing. How are you feeling? If you've got a 401k and you're thinking, oh God, here comes 2008 all over again, you're not going to be in the best frame of mind to trade. Or if you just lost 3 trades in a row, I want to know, am I agitated right now? Really? Maybe that I'm going to not trade right now. Cognitive state. I could have woken up and for some reason, maybe I was hanging out with some friends the night before, which I normally wouldn't do on a trading night, but maybe it was like unavoidable. I had some tequila, God knows what else. And believe me, I'm usually very healthy. Like I said, I eat health foods, take brain-enhancing nutrients, work out a lot, but I do occasionally enjoy myself. What if for some reason my brain's not going too well? Well, I want to know that. Am I fuzzy? All right, my brain's kind of fuzzy today. I am not focused. I am out of it. Something is wrong. Okay, I'm writing that down. Market conditions, what am I seeing? Let's look back. Let me scroll out of my chart, zoom them out. Is this thing chopping around? Is it wildly just crazy volatile like we've seen in NQ, a few weeks back, where it's making swings that you'd have to have like an 80-tick stop loss or you'd get stopped out, or just crazy stuff. I want to know what I'm seeing, and I want to process that. I don't want to just in my brain go, oh, it looks pretty, I'm going to write it out. So at any given moment, I know my emotional state, my cognitive state, and what the market is doing. And that's been extremely helpful to me. Because we may have a vague idea, but you need to know. Again, if you're a robot or cyborg or one of these things, you don't have to worry about that. Robot does not get upset after he loses 10 times in a row. If it's a good robot, if it's a trading robot, it shouldn't. Robot just keeps taking all great setups, doesn't he? Its brain doesn't get fuzzy. It's going to stay focused. There's the entry, ching, and if it's programmed right, and you're one of those rare 1 in a million people that has an incredible automated trading program, more power to you. I've never seen anything that didn't have lots of drawdown, didn't know how to process changing market conditions, worked in some, didn't work in others. I'm not one of these people that wants to wake up in the morning, and I did some automated trading, and I made a huge mistake. I had this thing working for months, and when I was doing Forex and the pound yen, I developed something that would trade in the middle of the night when I was sleeping. At a 100-tick target and a 50-tick stop loss, it won twice as much as it lost. And I made sim money for months. And then I went like for a few weeks on a very small amount of contracts, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. And I went 10 lots, 10 standard lots, and I lost like $50,000. It's such a long story. It's so incredibly stupid, but you can get really caught up in auto trading and back testing and forward testing. Not for me anymore. Okay, here's some rules that I came up with for preventing some of my mistakes. Verbal commentary, and I've talked about this on my thread here. For those that have followed it, they know that I like to kind of talk while I'm trading. I say, well, the market's moving up, NQ is doing this, it's in a little box right now, do I want to take this if it goes out? I'm always doing what if scenarios. I'm always saying, what if this happens? And then if something starts showing up that looks like I'm about to take it, I verify it's one of my allowed setups. It's not some spontaneous entry. No, this is the second wave M with bottom break entry. That's my setup. Here it is. And, then I do the checklist. Why do I not want this trade? Gee, there's a very strong support level, only about 10 ticks below. I don't really want to bother only going for 10 ticks. Or, geez, every swing lately has not been going anywhere. I mean, the market conditions suck. They're no good. It's bouncing. It's this. I look for adverse conditions that might make my setup not be high probability. Or our news is coming out in 5 minutes. Maybe not a good time to go in. Or this clown from the Fed that every time he opens his mouth, the market crashes. Maybe I don't want to go in a trade right at this moment because he's about to talk. There's always some reasons you might not want to take the trade. I only want to cherry pick. I only want the best of the best. That's what high probability means. That's why a lot of my trades tend to work out. I want my target to be in an area where it doesn't have to go through a lot of support and resistance to get there. Because every time it does, it's going to take a bounce. I know exactly when trades hit a certain price level. It's going to bounce. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. And if it seems like way too much work, not taking the trade. It's okay. What you never want to do is say, I've got to go in this trade because I know it's going to move and I don't want to miss the move. The fear of missing out. Never go in a trade because you don't want to miss the move. I only get upset if I don't take a trade when it's a perfect setup, it meets all my criteria, and for some reason I just can't pull the trigger. And I'm like, you wimp. MTFU, man the you-know-what up. Take the darn trade, Anyhow, all right, now if I take 2 losses in a row, a lot of times in the past that was enough to really start the whole meltdown, the whole unhinge, the whole, the whole problem. Just a couple of losses, really, I don't like to lose, I guess. So I found that the best thing for me to do is take a quick timeout. Just get up, it's not a real long one, and I employ a little strategy I call slow breathing. I learned about this because when I was trading a lot years ago and getting my adrenaline up every single day, I also found that my blood pressure was starting to go up. I'd go afterwards to one of those machines at the drugstore and it'd be like, wow, I have high blood pressure? Yeah, because my adrenaline was jacked from my trading every day. And then I bought this device liking to do things natural, not wanting to go on blood pressure meds or beta blockers while I'm trading or something like that. There was a thing called Respirate, and it's a little device that paces your breathing. And you put this on, and there's a thing that you learn to slow breathing, and that lowers your adrenaline, plus it expands your blood vessels, gets rid of high blood pressure, but it really can calm you down, and I don't need the machine to pace my breathing. I've done it enough where, and I just do this for a few minutes after I've traded. I'm like breathing in for like 8 or 9 seconds. It's not deep breathing where you're hyperventilating. It's just a slow breathing. Some people are probably going, oh my gosh, what is this, new age? Is he going to, start meditating while he's talking here? No. It's just a technique that calms me down, centers me, and it's just something I do. And then when I go back, a quick ECM inventory, emotional, cognitive, market, like, what I'm trying to establish when I lose a few times in a row, am I off or is the market off? Or both. If I'm off and the market's off, that's a recipe for disaster. So I want to know. So after that, the ECM inventory, if everything seems okay, I'll go back to trading. Now, do I always do this? I ideally should. There's been some times where my discipline has been bad and I haven't. Max loss limit adhered to. Okay. When you hit that maximum drawdown that you've established through your calculations that makes the most sense for your trading style, turn off your charts and your PC and walk away. Why do I say that? Because you might say, well, you know what? I'm just going to practice on sim for a while. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to see an amazing setup and you're going to go, why shouldn't I take this live? Why should I be on sim? Well, you hit your daily drawdown. Shut up. I'm going to go ahead. Just this once, because this is a ridiculously good setup. And boom, somehow it loses, because there's a random distribution of wins and losses in any setup. And even if it looks great, some of those lose. And then, oh gosh, things can really spiral. I got so bad once that I have a safe that you can lock up for a prescribed period of time. And I would put things in it that I didn't want to indulge in, let's say, for a whole week. Maybe it's tequila, who knows. But I'd put it in the safe, program it for 1 week, and it would open up, and I could say, all right, it's Saturday, that's when I get to drink. And some days I would put my mouse to my maid trading computer, the little mouse that controls the computer, and I'd lock it up till after 4 when the market's closed and couldn't trade. I mean, whatever you have to do, or you have to drive away in your car, get the heck away. Now, I never thought I'd have these kind of issues because I'm not a gambler. I never went to Vegas. But in Vegas, when you keep it, the guy can't walk away from the table and he's like blowing his money and screaming at people. Usually a guy in a tuxedo or a suit comes over and says, excuse me, sir, we're going to have to walk you out of the casino. But when you're at your desk and you're trading, there's no guy going to show up in a tuxedo that's going to say, excuse me, sir, let's walk you away from your PC, time to stop trading. You have to be able to discipline yourself and do it on your own. So there it is. Those are some of the things. I know this was a bit long, but I think it's very important to people, especially if you're going back to live trading or you failed at live trading. Maybe you have, and these are my mistakes. You might have your own issues, but you got to discover those issues and come up with solutions and then have the discipline to follow those solutions. All right, that's it.